Good afternoon. Today I'm not on my bike. I'm not on my bike because my bike is broken. So I need to fix my bike, and what I need to do is rebuild my rear wheel. So obviously I need to explain why I'm doing this job at all. Well, there's the reason. The spoke holes have cracked. I noticed when there were 3 cracks. I then went on a ride of 83 kilometres, and when I got back there were 6. So when they start to go, don't ignore it. Get on and do something about it. You'll have to change that rim. So there is quite a lot of, frankly, nonsense about building wheels. It's not that difficult, especially for e-bike hubs, because the spokes only cross once. For more technical bikes, for stronger wheels, spokes can often cross 2 or even 3 times, and lacing those can get complicated. But with these wheels, it's really straightforward. So to do the job, you're going to need to drop your rear wheel out of your bike. This is from an albeit again, but any X35, pretty much any hub motor e-bike will work in exactly the same way. You'll need a few other things as well. You'll need a cardboard tube or a bucket. I've got this piece of foam with a hole cut in it. That's to support the wheel as you're making it. You'll need some tyre levers, Allen keys, spoke key. We'll probably need, I haven't checked yet, we'll probably need to take both the disc brake, the rotor and the cassette off. So you need a cassette removal tool. For the disc rotor, it's just a cross-headed screwdriver, but I like to use a little ratchet set that I've got. What else? Spokes. Spokes. Spokes are the only part where it gets tricky. Now, the length of the spokes is key, and also how many spokes. How many spokes is down to how many holes there are in in your hub motor. For the Marley X35, it's 32. There's a few fewer in the X20, but you just need to count them up and get that number of spokes. It's better to use new spokes than reuse old spokes. But the length of the spokes is tricky. It depends on a whole load of variables. You'll need to look at somebody else's video on how to calculate spoke length. Terry Dickerson has made one. He's at 5 Minute Velo. Perfectly reasonable, and he's remaking an albeit again wheel. He's actually upgrading his to a carbon wheel set, and again it's the same principles involved. So the reason why I'm mentioning spoke length at all is because unless your rims are identical to the ones that you are replacing, the spoke length is likely to be different. I've gone the easy option. I've bought an exact replacement for my Roddy, what are they called? Airline Corsas. They're exactly the same size. I found a great deal online with hollandbikeshop.com, not sponsoring me. But I did get an exact replacement rim for about 25 euros. So along with the spokes, which shouldn't be more than, well, they're about €1 each, including the nipple. I'd advise that you get a good quality spokes. I've got Sapim Race spokes. In the exact replicas of the ones I've got are 240 millimeters long, and they're double butted, which mean that they are thick at the hook end and at the nipple end, and the actual length of the spoke is slightly narrower. It doesn't need to be. I think some people say it's actually stronger. I think it's just for weight myself. Perhaps people will correct me in the comments, but they're the most easily available. So get what's easily available. So first things first, we need to take the tyre and the tube off, and we need to start undoing these old spokes to get the hub motor off this rim. We also need to take off the cassette and the disc rotor, because it's just going to make it a lot easier to rethread the spokes afterwards. Okay, well the cassette is off and the rotor is off. I've also just taken off the rim tape. But I'm going to show you what I mean by single crossing. Behind my hand, there's 2 spokes. And for the whole of the length up to the rim, they only cross that once. Now the point of crossing is to help reinforce the spoke with another one. And the way they do that is by actually sharing some of the load. And they do that by touching. Now this has been laced so that, can you see that? Don't know if you can. They don't touch. Spokes are normally alternately laced so that one starts from the inside, is threaded through and then goes up to the outside. And then the next one is threaded from the outside, goes through the flange and then up to the rim. Can you see that? That one from the inside to the out, next one outside in. And they're done in pairs, the same, all the way around. But by doing it this way, with such a thick flange, means that the spokes, when they cross, just don't touch. It's a pointless exercise, these being cross-laced. Completely pointless. Unless someone in the comments knows better. I don't think so. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lace all of them from the inside to the out. Now that should mean that they actually touch where they cross. So I wasn't sure if that was the right thing to do, so I've just checked online with a wheel builder, and he does it in exactly the same way with e-bikes because those flanges are often very thick. So next is the incredibly tedious bit of loosening each and every spoke with a spoke key. Little bit of hindsight here. You could save yourself a good half hour by cutting these. You could always undo a few and keep them as spares. These aren't a great spoke key. They're designed for every different type of spoke. It's better if you get specific ones. They're much easier to use in this because half the time you're trying to check which of these slots is the right slot for your spoke. Yes, I could use a bit of Tipex. Who does that? Just in case you've not done this before, to loosen a spoke, if you're looking from on top of the rim, you turn it anti-clockwise like you would a normal screw. That way. To undo. Okay? Well, I'm not going to lie. That took forever. Okay, so now we're ready to relace. Put the hub, which I've cleaned, into a cardboard tube, bucket, doesn't really matter what, and you get your first 2 spokes. And we're going to drop them into the lower flange, 2 side by side. Just drop them all through. Right, that's all of the lower side. What I'll try and do is sort of spread them as I put them down. So something taller than this would be obviously of a benefit at this stage. So they're all there. Now I'm going to try and find the valve hole in the rim, which is right next to me. And we're going to start to the left of the valve hole. And we're going to grab any 2 spokes. And we're going to cross them, one to the other. Now, it doesn't matter which way round, as long as you continue doing it that way round all the way. So I'm going to take my right one and it's over my left. So the left hand one of the 2 starts on the left, crosses underneath, pops up, and I'm going to feed that into the hole just to the left of the valve hole. I'm then going to skip a hole and I'm going to put the other one of this pair in through the hole, so it's just 2 across. Does that make sense? Feed them away through the rim, because at this stage it's going to be easy because you can just grab your nipples and screw them on. Not a lot, just screw them on 2 or 3 turns just so they don't fall off again. And continue doing that all the way around the wheel. So we're going to move around, we're going to grab the next two, we're going to cross right, we're going to cross right over left as we did before, we're going to skip a hole, and then we're going to feed one through the rim, skip a hole, feed the other through the rim. And at this point you can still push it far enough over that you can grab the spoke nipples and just put them on by hand. And remember, it's not on a lot, we're just putting it on 2 or 3 turns just so they can't fall off again. Right over left, right over left. Always dropping stuff. This is a very time consuming process, but it's not difficult. You just have to take your time. Right, on to the last two. On this side, I'll have another 16 to do in a moment. It has got a little bit easier. At one point I was having to use the spoke key to put them on, but as you get towards the end you can just do them with your fingers, which is a lot easier. So I'm still doing the same thing. So with this last one I'll show you. Just grab a nipple, thread it onto my bent spoke tool, just an old spoke. So taking this last one, it's every other hole. I thread the spoke nipple through from the outside to the in, bend the spoke a little just so it attaches into the spoke nipple, and then you just keep the tension, you push from the outside in, and then you just turn the spoke nipple with your fingers until it engages. We're not trying to do it all the way up tight, just like I said, a couple of turns. Of course this one is being problematic. I've got the sun right in my eyes. It's been a very funny day. It's been 100 km/h winds, which is why I'm quite happy to be in here and not out there on my bike. Not that I have a bike at the moment. Right, and that's it. So side one is done. So now we just flip the whole thing over, and again starting at the valve hole, which is here, we start dropping them in. We start dropping these spokes in. What you're trying to do with the valve hole, so there's the valve hole. What you're trying to make sure is that you don't have something crossing down here. So what we did with these first two is that they went away from the valve hole. So what I'm doing is I'm feeding in a spoke from the inside to the out. It's all just a very lengthy but completely straightforward process so far. Hasn't been anything difficult, just takes a long time. Okay, so now we've got them all threaded through. We look for the valve hole, which is here. Come to the left of it. We select the two nearest. Here they are. I'm going to do the same, right over left. So I'm going to grab the left one, and I'm going to feed that up into the hole just to the left of the valve hole. Valve hole's here. I'm just going to feed that into the hole that's just there, but I need all my hands to do it. So there's the first of the ones coming from the lower flange. Now I've turned it over. That's in, and from there just maintaining the same cross pattern. So for me, I'm crossing the right over left. The next one will feed into the gap between these two. I'm having to use the spoke key each time now. So I feed in the spoke nipple from this side using my old broken spoke, and then just putting the spoke key on here, I tighten it up, and that's from this direction, it's clockwise to tighten. Keep trying to tighten it up with my fingers. Doesn't work. Not on this side. Not for me. Right, last one. It is taking a very long time. Not entirely sure how long I've been doing this for. But at least at the end of this I'll have a laced wheel. Right, so that is stage one. So to get the tension roughly set, absolutely just first go, tighten all of the spoke nipples until the thread disappears. Just that, no further, exactly that. Just gives you a first standard of tension. So with the spokes in, we can just go ahead and put the rotor back on and the cassette. Right, well, I'm quite pleased. I've got the wheel laced again and it's got some initial tension in it. I've got the rotor and the cassette back on. I'm just going to show you something which is particular to the X35. It's that, put it back on. Don't think you can get away without it. It's there for a reason. It keeps this cable, it keeps it away from the brake rotor. The other thing I'm pleased about, where we have the crossings, they touch like they're supposed to. Right, here we go for part two. Part two is how to true the wheel. What we need to do is we need to dish the wheel. Because the wheel from the rear has got a lot of gubbins on one side, i.e. the cassette, and not a lot on the other, just the disc rotor. What we need to do is we need to move the entirety of the wheel into the centre. So I've got this currently I've dropped the wheel into an old frame of mine that I've just jammed between a couple of chairs. You could do something more professional. I have a truing stand, but I did have a look online and the Park Tools one is £500. Well, I had an old frame, turn it upside down, Bob's your uncle. But you can see at the moment the wheel is very offset to the left, so we need to pull the whole thing over to the right. And the way that we do that, and this is again just the first phase, the first stage of doing things, all of the spokes on this side we're going to tighten 2 turns and see how that goes. Right, we've now dished the wheel, so it is more central up at the front there, between the 2 chainstays. And you should be able to see it as well, because these spokes here are almost invisible. They're sort of running like that, and these sort of stick out more. I'm not sure you can see it. I can't see it looking through the viewfinder of the camera. Let's hope you can. Anyway, that's dishing. Okay, so we're now going to true the wheel, and we true the wheel by putting a zip tie on the frame. What I've done is I've attached a zip tie to the chainstay closest to the wheel, and I've cut it so that when the wheel bumps it, it makes a little noise like that. There. So I know that at that point the wheel is too far that way. So what I do is I tighten the spokes on this side at that point, just a little quarter turn at a time, until that noise stops. What I'll then do is move the zip tie a little bit further forwards so it's closer to the wheel, and I keep doing that until basically the wheel touches for the entire rotation. So I know that it's completely true. Now you can spend a lot of time on this, or you can accept that it's not going to be absolutely perfect. I would say that, well, it's worth doing, isn't it? If you're going to be sitting here doing the job, you might as well do it right, but it doesn't have to be completely perfect. So we'll see how it goes with this now. So I'm going to spin the wheel, listen for when it makes the noise. There. I can see that it's closest to this spoke here. So all I'm going to do is give that a little tighten, a little quarter turn, which will pull the wheel this way away from the zip tie. I'm just going to try that because it's so slight. Yeah, it's already gone. So if it's a really significant wobble that you've got on your wheel, you won't just be looking for the spoke that it's closest to. You'll be also adjusting possibly the one on either side of that one. You possibly even might go as far as doing 3 or 4 spokes, or 5, just to pull the whole of the wheel that's touching away from the zip tie and the noise. So I'm just going to move the zip tie forwards, and we'll try again. You can hear it's actually touching. I don't know if you can hear. It's touching for almost the whole wheel already. So I'm just going to bring it back a little and see if I can identify the points where it touches. There. It's still touching. Comes away there. So that is from this point wow, to there. I've got 3/4 of the wheel, if you like, true already. Well, I might as well stick with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten ever so slightly all of those spokes. And as you tighten these spokes, you're pulling the wheel to one side, so it does actually tighten the ones on the other side too. So in truth, if this wasn't for a video, I would have accepted the trueness of this wheel already. Okay, now I've got a single high point you can hear, hopefully. So it goes from there to there. So it's only now affecting 3 spokes. Again, tiny little quarter turns. And this one here. Let's try that. Got one tiny little blip. That's just there. This spoke here, another quarter turn. So the very last thing we're going to check, now that we have a dished wheel and a true wheel, is we're going to check that the wheel is still a circle, because pulling all the spokes can actually affect the roundness of your wheel. Same thing again, you put a zip tie somewhere on the frame so it just touches the rim, and you spin the wheel. There is a little noise. There. It's this spoke here. I just need to tighten it. There's a high point here. I just need to tighten this just to draw the rim away from the zip tie. This is for roundness. Might just give the ones on either side a little tiny bit as well, not much. Still there. It's this one. Once you have adjusted for roundness, you then need to go back and do it for true, because by making it round you may have pulled the wheel to one side. Still getting a tiny, tiny, tiny knock. Just there. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear, but we've now pulled the wheel out of true. It now has a extra little noise, but it is round. No, not quite. Wow, something very, very tiny there. Slightly different spot. But you can see it's just a long process, but one that you can really take. I could ride this now, absolutely no problem. But when am I likely to do this again? You can do it with the wheel on the bike. Well, we're now round, and we're out of true. So let's just see where that is. No noise. So we've now got a round and true and dished wheel. It's done. There's one last and very important thing I didn't tell you. Now, the spokes, when you tighten them, they can twist as you tighten them. The actual metal can twist, and you don't want them to do that. So what you want to do is, once you've finished doing everything else, you release the twist by squeezing. Squeeze each pair of, and the other side, squeeze them, and you'll hear some little cracklings going on, and that's the sort of the torsion being released. Hope that makes sense. Sorry, it's a bit rough and ready at the end there. Okay, so that's all there is to it. It took around 2.5 hours, so you could knock off half an hour just by cutting the spokes, cheating a bit messy of a job, but it's not too bad, is it? 2.5 hours, and I've got a completely new rear wheel. So thanks for watching. Hopefully the wheel will be on the bike for next week, but there is more exciting news. I keep hinting at it, and I'm hoping that in the next couple of weeks I'll be able to tell you all about it. But it's new bikes are on the horizon. Until then, thanks for watching.